Hi, welcome back to the recap room. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a war action film titled Ninth Company. Spoilers ahead. The movie starts in 1988 in Siberia during the Soviet-Afghanistan War. All the recruits bid goodbye to their loved ones before they leave for war. They are then told by a sergeant to go to the barber shop so that they can get their haircuts. The recruits' hair is shaved off, as was protocol for all new soldiers. One of the barbers comments on a recruit's suit. Luigi does not like the mocking tone of the barber and attacks him. He gets on top of the barber and shaves a patch of hair from his head. Later, when the haircuts are done, one of the recruits named Vorobey is told that he's going to join the 6th squad. He goes looking for them, knowing that he will have to spend the next few months with the squad. He introduces himself and shakes hands with Luigi, who then introduces him to Ruslan, the painter, Stas, Sergei, Chugun, and Raiba. Just when the recruits are getting to know each other, the barber shows up with a commander and points to Luigi and complains to the commander about Luigi punching him and shaving his hair off. The commander is ready to reprimand the recruits, but he soon realizes who they are. He hits the barber and dismisses his complaint, telling him that they are members of the Afghan unit. The commander leaves, and the recruits start jumping in joy when they realize they now have much more power and respect. The next day, the recruits reach their base in Uzbekistan, where they will be trained for the next few months. There, they are introduced to Pinochet, who tells them that he will be joining their squad and that he is a recruit as well. Just then, Lieutenant Digallo shows up. He looks intimidating, and when he sees the recruits sitting, he immediately tells them to form a line. He then introduces himself to the recruits and tells them that they will be training with him as Soviet paratroopers for the next 3 months. He then asks everyone to say their name. Everyone begins to state their name when Digallo reaches Ruslan. He asks him what he does, to which Ruslan replies that he's a painter. Digallo asks him what he's doing on the battlefield since he's an artist. Ruslan tries to get smart with him and says that he is there to draw naked women on the field. This earns him a punch in the gut for trying to joke around. Luti then also receives a beating for causing a scene with the barber. Digallo tells the recruits that they will have to follow his orders and tell them to follow his jeep. The recruits quickly gather their belongings. The training with Digallo starts, and it is more brutal than what the soldiers could have anticipated. In one instance, the lieutenant orders the men to fill their backpacks with rocks and climb up a steep hill, carrying their heavy backpacks. Struggling, the soldiers make their way to the top of the hill, but before they have time to react, they are pushed down the hill by soldiers who are standing on top of the hill. Digallo watches disappointed. He shouts at the men and tells them that they need to be prepared for the worst, and that the more they bleed during training, the lesser they will bleed in the war. He tells them that war is much more unforgiving than their training. That night, Luti and the recruits wonder why they have to train for 3 months instead of the standard 3 weeks like the rest of the soldiers. Rabaya tells them about a rumor that he had heard about Digallo, who had lost all of his men in the front lines, which is why his training is harsher and tougher, because he wants to avoid a repeat of the trauma that he went through. Over the next few weeks, the harsh training continues, and Digallo continues to push the soldiers to their limits. They are asked to wake up early in the morning and rush into changing their uniforms before going toward the training grounds again. One day, Chugun stuffs a jacket in his backpack instead of rocks to shield him from the fall. Unfortunately, Digallo catches him at the top of the hill and beats him up to serve as an example of what will happen if anyone were to disobey him. The next morning, Digallo makes his men do some running exercises when Vorobey falls to the ground, groaning in pain. He had managed to injure his back and is unable to get up. The squad then carries him up the hill. Fed up with the harsh training, Vorobey claims that he will quit the next day. Stas tells the squad that he plans on quitting as well, since his mother is sick and alone, and he needs to go back to take care of her. That evening, a colonel asks the whole regiment to gather around and ask if anyone wants to quit. Both Vorobey and Stas almost step forward, but then change their minds at the last minute. Once again, the brutal training resumes. One day, in their plastic explosives class, Ruslan molds the plastic to look like a male genital, causing men to laugh. Their instructor snatches the plastic from Ruslan and scolds him for disturbing the class, but everyone continues to laugh. the instructor leaves, telling them that they will be reported for disrupting class. That night, Ruslan is called to Digalo's office. He nervously makes his way to the office, assuming the worst. But much to his surprise, Digalo does not seem interested and tells Ruslan to draw a portrait of him for a woman he's exchanging letters with. The following day, the men are then taught about the culture of Afghanistan. They are told that since it is a Muslim country, it largely differs from theirs. They are taught their rules of life and are told that these tiny details could make the difference between life and death. The soldiers are then told not to disrespect their women, as it can be a death sentence. In addition to that, they are told that the Mujahideen are not scared of death and even welcome it as it promises them paradise. Later, the soldiers practice their marksmanship when Digalo notices that Ruslan is a great marksman. He places a coin above the target and asks Ruslan to shoot, but does so without breaking a sweat. When it is time to climb up the hill again, Luti makes a plan with the rest of the men. As they climb the hill, they reach the top and grab the legs of the soldiers waiting to push them down, and instead pull them so they make it to the top and the soldiers fall off the cliff. Once the squad makes it to the top, they begin screaming and celebrating. The next dawn, the squad is violently woken up by Digalo, who begins to beat them to a pulp for no reason. He suddenly stops and leaves the room. Everyone remains quiet, unsure of how to decipher what happened. Ruslan then reveals to them that the lieutenant had sent a letter asking for approval for him to be deployed again, which was rejected. Due to the brutal training, the squad begins to get close to each other, and as training comes to an end, they drink together. The next day, the squad gets ready to go to the front lines. Digalo struggles to say something to the men, so he gives them a salute and leaves. They then arrive at Bagram Air Base. As they get off their plane, they are greeted by troops who have completed their deployment. One of the troops hands Luti a talisman and tells him that it kept him safe during the war. The squad watches as the plane carrying the troop is shot down by a rocket, and it immediately catches fire and crashes down, killing everyone inside. The recruits watch in shock as this becomes their first taste of war. The recruits are assigned to the 9th Company, and they meet their trainer and drill instructor named Kokol, who had served under Digalo. Pinochet and Rayaba are sent to a different unit and are separated from the squad. Paul briefs the men on the mission and leads them to the makeshift stone fortress on top of the mountain. One day, as everyone is drinking, they are notified that they are being attacked by the Afghans. They rush outside and fighting ensues when one of the soldiers recognizes Ahmed, a member of the Mujahideen. They start cursing at each other and fighting continues. One morning, while Vorobey is on patrol duty, he comes across Ahmed and the two point their guns at each other. Ahmed tells Vorobey that he has a girl waiting at home for him, so Vorobey lets him go. However, Ahmed's foot slips and Vorobey thinks he's about to pull out his gun. He nervously shoots, killing Ahmed. Hearing the commotion, the recruits show up and congratulate Vorobey on his first kill. 6 months later, the recruits are still in Afghanistan and are digging to get a better position on top of the mountain. A few moments later, Raiba arrives, bloodied and in shock. Everyone goes to help him as he had just gotten back from a battle and lost most of his friends. That night, Stas falls asleep on guard duty and is beaten up by Kokol for slacking. A month later, Kokol asks Ruslan to find a matchbox for him. Ruslan finds a civilian and asks him for a matchbox in exchange of food. The civilian leads him back to his village where they exchange food for 2 matchboxes. On his way back, he meets a commanding officer who was on his way to attack the village. He beats Ruslan for leaving his position. The next day, a Soviet convoy makes way to the 9th Company, but is suddenly attacked. They are caught off guard, and the Afghans are familiar with the hilly area, and the convoy ends up getting destroyed. Raiba, who is caught in the middle, starts to scream for everyone to stop, but is killed. Lieutenant Kokol and Luti try to chase the enemies, but lose them in the caves. The rest of the troops make their way to the village to search for the Mujahideen. Stas comes across a boy and lets his guard down when the boy shoots him. Luti intervenes and tries to save Stas, but it is too late and he bleeds out. Later, the Soviets drop bombs in the village, destroying it. One Year's Eve, the men start to celebrate as it is almost time to head back when Pinochet comes in and hugs the men. He tells them that he got into trouble with his squad, so he has been assigned to the 9th Company. The next morning, Ruslan goes out to paint when the Mujahideen sneak up behind him and shoot him in the head, just as he calls out for the rest of the soldiers. The Afghans attack the Soviets. They continue fighting until the Afghans launch missiles. Koko realizes that he's the only commanding officer remaining. Chugun blindly starts shooting the machine gun, killing most of the Afghans. The Soviets sit hopelessly as a large number of their troops are killed. The Afghans launch another attack, and the exhausted troops try fighting them off, but Lieutenant Kokol dies along with Chugun, who blows himself and a few other Mujahideen with a grenade. The remaining Soviets go on a rampage and start killing the Afghans. Pinochet is shot to death when he tries to advance. Luti commands the 6 remaining soldiers and they fight the Afghans despite limited ammo. Afghans relentlessly attack them until everyone dies, leaving Luti as the sole survivor. Just when he's giving up, bombs are dropped, killing the remaining Mujahideen. The colonel greets Luti, who salutes him and tells him that the convoy can move forward. But the colonel hugs him and tells him that there will be no more convoys coming, as the war has ended, but the 9th Company wasn't informed in time. And that's the end of the recap, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and the notification bell as well to stay updated on our next uploads.